What happens when you hear the word mummy? When you hear the word mummy, you might get chills down your spine. That's because, honestly, most of us associate it with creepy characters from scary movies. But in reality, mummies have helped us learn a lot about ancient civilizations, their rulers, and how people dealt with losing loved ones. The most famous mummies in the world come from ancient Egypt. The Egyptians believed in an afterlife, but only if certain conditions were met. That's why they insisted on preserving the body through mummification and placing it in a well-furnished tomb, like giving it its own fully equipped apartment. Why did they believe this? Well, they were deeply connected to their natural environment. They saw natural cycles every day, like the rising sun followed by the moon, or how new plants sprouted even after others had withered. They also believed in a powerful spirit called Osiris, who represented the cycle of death and rebirth, playing a key role in the journey to the afterlife. To prepare for this journey, the ancient Egyptians followed special rituals like mummification, which included using materials like honey, resin, and incense to preserve the body. No mummy is more famous than King Tutankhamun. He was a young pharaoh who ruled Egypt over 3,000 years ago. The problem with royal tombs is that many of them were looted long ago. People knew that ancient rulers were buried with valuable treasures, so these sites attracted thieves. But when King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, it caused a sensation. It hadn't been robbed like the others. That's how well hidden it was. Inside, his mummy was wrapped in 3 coffins, one of which was made of solid gold. The items in his tomb gave us a glimpse into what life was like in ancient Egypt, and studying his mummy helped us understand the culture and practices of that time. Scientists even learned about his family and health through DNA analysis. It turns out he had malaria and a foot disorder, which may have made walking difficult. Another famous pharaoh was Ramses II, who ruled for 68 years, an incredibly long time back then. He was known for military campaigns and massive building projects. Many artifacts from his reign still exist today, including a giant statue of him. Ramses II was about 6 feet tall and lived to around 90 years old. After examining his mother, scientists believe he may have had a condition that affected his spine. And remember those tomb raiders we mentioned earlier? They're probably the reason Ramses II ended up in an ordinary coffin in a secret royal cache in Deir el-Bahari, which was rediscovered in 1881. Luckily, archaeologists could identify him because his travels were recorded on the wrappings of his body. Mummification was no quick job. In fact, it could take up to 70 days. A special priest would say very specific prayers while carefully preparing the body and drying it out using a salt called natron. They also used linen and resin to make the body look more lifelike and wrapped it in cloth. The tomb itself was just as important. For example, King Tut's tomb walls were decorated with detailed artwork showing his journey to the afterlife, from his funeral procession to his path through the underworld. The ancient Egyptians believed everyone went on this journey after death, so they filled the tombs with items and paintings to help guide the soul. They even included spells on the tomb walls from a special book filled with poems believed to help the deceased reach the afterlife. That's how serious they were about the trip. They also left food inside the tombs. In Tut's case, archaeologists found 36 jars of drinks and baskets of fruit meant to sustain him on his journey. They believed the afterlife was a long journey, so they left supplies like food and water. Pharaohs were also buried with fancy clothes and jewelry to make sure their trip was stylish. This included linen robes, scarves, gloves, headwear, and loads of gold jewelry with gemstones, bracelets, buckles, pendants, necklaces, rings, and even protective bug-shaped amulets. Some were buried with fans made of ivory and ostrich feathers to stay cool in the afterlife. Some rulers even had boats buried with them, like Pharaoh Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid of Giza as his tomb. Inside, a giant boat was found. King Tut, however, was buried with paddles and 3 chariots, no actual boat, which might suggest he preferred to travel over land. One of the most fascinating things found near mummies were bottles of oils and perfumes. I mean, if the pharaohs were going to be stylish, why not smell good too? Some even had board games made from luxurious materials like gold or ivory. One popular game was called senet, kind of like early chess. While Egyptian mummies are the most famous, they weren't the first to practice mummification. That started in South America with an ancient culture called the Chinchorro. As far as we know, they began mummifying their dead around 2,000 years before the Egyptians started their own rituals. We've learned a lot about ancient rulers from mummies, but for a long time, we didn't really know what they looked like when alive. Not long ago, archaeologists studying Egyptian artifacts discovered mummy portraits, incredibly detailed paintings of the deceased created during their lifetimes, usually painted on wood, not canvas. These portraits were surprisingly realistic and beautiful. Scientists even used them to diagnose illnesses by comparing the portraits with the actual mummies. Some portraits even showed jewellery that was later found on the bodies. A recent discovery of such portraits in central Egypt is huge. It's the first time in over 100 years that any have been found. And mummies haven't only been found in Egypt. In some parts of the world, mummification happened naturally, without any human effort. Cold climates, extreme heat, low oxygen or chemical exposure can preserve bodies by stopping bacteria from growing. One famous natural mummy is Otzi the Iceman, a man who lived about 5,000 years ago in Europe. When his body was found in the Alps in 1991, Austrian authorities thought he was a modern mountaineer because he was so well preserved. But once he was removed from the glacier, scientists realized he dated. And finally, let's talk about something mysterious: sealed doors around the world that haven't been opened in decades, maybe even centuries. You'd think in today's world we could open anything, right? But some doors have been locked for good reason, hiding secrets and treasures we still don't fully understand. Take the Taj Mahal in India. Built by Shah Jahan in 1631 as a gift to his beloved third wife, it's considered one of the most romantic places in the world. They were married for 19 years and had 14 children. But sadly, she died giving birth to their last child. Heartbroken, Shah Jahan built this epic tomb to honor her. It took 20 years to complete. The design is amazing, especially the 4 minarets, those tall towers on each corner of the massive platform. They aren't just for looks. In the 17th century, architects were worried about buildings collapsing under their own weight, so the minarets were built at a slant so that if they ever fell, they'd fall away from the main tomb. But here's the real twist. The Taj Mahal is full of locked rooms and nobody's allowed inside. If you look at photos from the riverbank, you can even see 2 sealed vaults. Nobody knows what's inside or why they've been locked since Shah Jahan's time. Some researchers believe those rooms were made with a type of marble that turns into calcium carbonate if exposed to carbon dioxide, which would cause the marble to flake and crumble. Worse, there's no airflow in those chambers, meaning if too much carbon dioxide builds up, the rooms could collapse. But wait, there's more. Some people believe that the body of Shah Jahan's wife might be hidden inside one of those sealed rooms, perfectly preserved. Could it be true? Who knows what these mysterious rooms are hiding? Now let's talk about the Great Sphinx of Giza, one of the most mysterious monuments in the world. Not only is it the largest statue of its kind, but it's also a mythical hybrid creature with a woman's head and a lion's body. It comes from both Egyptian and Greek mythology and is believed to be about 4,500 years old. Building it took roughly 3 years and about 100 workers, not slaves, but actual labourers who were treated well and fed things like lamb and goat meat. Interestingly, it used to be much bigger than it is now. Archaeologists found massive stone blocks and abandoned tools around the site, but the real mystery lies underground, near the Sphinx's paws. A group of scientists used seismic equipment to discover 2 hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx's paws. Some people believe these might be the legendary Hall of Records, said to contain ancient scrolls that reveal the secrets of the universe. That would be way cooler than any library you've ever been to. There are even rumours that the ancient Egyptians stored information about Atlantis in there. Basically, a very old conspiracy theory. Unfortunately, we can't go digging for answers just yet. It's believed the chambers have two entrances, but both are sealed, and researchers haven't been given the green light to explore them. Let's jump to India. In the beautiful state of Kerala, there's a temple called Padmanabhaswamy. This temple isn't just stunning, it's also known for what's hidden beneath it. There are 6 underground vaults named simply A, B, C, D, E and F. Huge iron doors guard them, adding to their mystery. A few years ago, the authorities decided to open them, but it wasn't easy. You can't just swing the doors open and walk in. It took a lot of effort, but finally, in 2011, they managed to open 5 of the 6 vaults. And what did they find? Tons of treasure, bags full of gold, precious stones and priceless diamond jewellery. The estimated total value of everything found, around $1 trillion. It was like a real-life Aladdin's cave. But hang on, you noticed I said 5 out of 6. What about Vault B? Well, that one stayed shut, not for lack of trying, they just couldn't open it. Some believe it's cursed. According to legend, only a saint or wise man can break the curse by chanting a special spell. So far, no one's been able to do that, maybe because we're fresh out of saints and sages. There's even a rumour that in the 1930s, some looters tried to break in but were chased away by giant snakes that appeared out of nowhere. Of course, that sounds like a myth, but who knows? Interestingly, an official who oversees the temple claims that Vault B has actually been opened at least 7 times since 1990 and nothing bad happened. So maybe we should send in Indiana Jones to check it out. Now let's head to China. Deep beneath an untouched hill surrounded by deadly traps lies the 2,000-year-old tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He was born in the state of Qin and became king as a child. As he grew in power, he conquered all the rival states and unified ancient China, founding the Qin dynasty. When he died in 210 BCE, he was buried deep underground in a massive tomb. And when I say massive, I mean truly massive. In 1974, some farmers digging a well near Xi'an, China, stumbled upon something strange. A giant clay soldier. That discovery led to over 40 years of archaeological work, revealing the world-famous terracotta army, thousands of life-size clay soldiers. Each one is unique, with different hairstyles and facial expressions. It's believed there may be as many as 8,000 of them, but only about 2,000 have been uncovered so far. What's crazy is that the main burial chamber, the emperor's actual tomb, is still untouched. Ancient records describe a huge underground city, complete with towers, palaces and hundreds of officials. The historian Sima Qian wrote that the tomb was decorated with treasures and featured rivers of mercury representing the Yangtze and Yellow rivers. The ancient Chinese believed mercury could grant immortality, but ironically, that might be what killed the emperor since he took mercury pills to live longer. Today, scientists are afraid to explore the tomb further because the soil around it contains dangerously high levels of mercury which could be harmful to people and the environment. If I had to choose which door to open, I'd go for the one not surrounded by toxic mercury, thanks. Call me boring, but I like staying alive. Unlike many ancient Egyptian tombs, King Tutankhamun's tomb remained untouched and hidden from tomb robbers for over 3,000 years. One reason was its size. It was smaller than average and tucked away in the Valley of the Kings. By the time archaeologists were exploring the area, the entrance was already covered by debris from nearby construction, which helped keep it hidden. There were no markings or signs on the outside, and over time nature helped preserve it until the 1920s, when Howard Carter finally uncovered it. But was Carter really a hero? Some recent discoveries suggest he might have been a little sneakier than we thought. Sure, he was a legit archaeologist, not just a treasure hunter, and had been obsessed with ancient Egypt since he was a kid. He'd draw ancient carvings and sculptures and later led the hunt that found King Tut. He spent a decade cataloguing and shipping items from the tomb to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, like golden thrones, chariots and statues. At least that's the official story. But a secret letter reveals a different side. Carter may have had a policy of 10 for them, 1 for me. The letter was sent to Sir Alan Gardner, a linguist and Carter's friend, back in 1922. Carter asked for advice, and in a later letter from 1934, Gardner thanked him for a magical amulet Carter gave him. Carter claimed it wasn't from Tut's tomb, but it clearly was. Even the museum director knew Carter had helped himself, but couldn't prove it. Gardner compared the amulet to one found in the tomb, and, yep, it was an exact match. Gardner was so upset he wrote a harsh letter to Carter, but he didn't throw him under the bus. He just advised him to return the stolen items quietly. And that wasn't the only shady thing. In 1947, a man named Alfred Lucas, who worked closely with Carter, claimed in a journal that Carter had secretly opened the burial chamber before the official discovery, then resealed it like nothing ever happened. Why would he do that? Probably so he and his team could get first dibs on the best treasures, and while they didn't dare sell anything while alive, they apparently arranged for them to be auctioned after they died. Carter never confessed, but he never denied it either. Eventually, the Egyptian government banned him from the tomb for a while. Some people even linked the theft to the so-called Curse of the Pharaoh. Ever heard of it? After Tut's tomb was opened, rumours spread that anyone who messed with the boy king's grave would suffer serious bad luck. It wasn't quite like a mummy coming to life, but people did notice that a number of those involved died mysteriously or young. The most famous case? George Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who funded the dig. He died just a year after the tomb was opened. Sounds spooky, right? Well, not really. Turns out Herbert was already in terrible health before he even got to Cairo and ended up dying from a pretty normal illness. Some of the staff definitely died not long after the tomb opened to visitors. As much as we'd love for this curse to be real, because, let's be honest, it makes a great story. The truth is a lot less magical. Statistically speaking, if a group of people is connected to opening an ancient tomb, you'd expect a few of them to pass away eventually, just by chance. In fact, the average lifespan of those supposedly targeted by the curse was over 20 years after the curse was said to have begun. Herbert's daughter even lived into the 1980s, that's half a century later. And Howard Carter himself lived until 1935, which is 16 years after the tomb was discovered. Some people have suggested that the entire idea of a curse was nothing more than a clever PR move. You see, when the tomb was first found, Carter wanted to keep nosy reporters away, so he may have come up with the whole "anyone who enters the boy king's tomb will be cursed" thing to scare them off. So, what exactly was stolen from King Tut's tomb? Apparently some jewellery, possibly taken by Carter himself. A French expert did some serious digging and compared old photos of the tomb taken in the 1920s with items now in various museums and auction houses. Piece by piece he started connecting the dots between these photos and Tutankhamun's missing jewellery. For example, there was a broad collar necklace that was originally found on King Tut's chest. It was broken into several pieces. Some of those pieces ended up, via Carter, in the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art in Missouri. Other parts were made into a necklace owned by some private collectors who tried to sell it in 2015, but the sale fell through. Even the Nelson Atkins Museum has confirmed the origins of their piece on their website. Then there's part of a headpiece. Some of the beads once belonged to Tutankhamun. These beads were also strung into a necklace and are now kept in the St. Louis Art Museum. Another fancy ceramic glazed collar was once on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Luckily, it was returned to Egypt over a decade ago, and yep, that was also likely stolen. Despite the missing treasures, King Tutankhamun still left behind an incredible legacy. His famous golden burial mask is a masterpiece, 21 inches tall, made of solid gold and inlaid with semi-precious stones and coloured glass. It weighs 22 pounds and shows the boy king with a long beard and a headdress featuring a cobra and a vulture on the back. There's even a protective spell on the mask from a sacred ancient Egyptian book meant to ensure he'd succeed in the afterlife. Turns out, Tut also loved board games. 4 of them were found in his tomb. including some made of ivory. Archaeologists even discovered a pair of golden sandals, though, let's be real, they were probably more for show than comfort. He likely never wore them while alive. And speaking of style, Tutankhamun was a total fashion king. They even found a mannequin in his tomb that he probably used to organize and fit his clothes and jewelry. He also seemed to enjoy music. Historians found 2 trumpets buried with him. Now that's royal entertainment. New discoveries: Egypt's oldest mummy. Recently, Egyptian archaeologists uncovered the oldest and most complete mummy ever found in the country, and they kept it secret for a while. This 4,300-year-old mummy was discovered in a group of tombs near the Step Pyramid of Djoser, which dates back to the Old Kingdom. The mummy was covered in layers of gold, and the excavation team also found several other tombs, including one that belonged to an ancient official and another to a secret guard who had the ability to perform special rituals. Another fascinating tomb found in the same area belonged to a scribe, and it held the largest statue ever discovered in that region. This massive burial site includes over a dozen pyramids and various resting places, making it one of the most incredible discoveries in recent history. Queen Hatshepsut, the Forgotten Pharaoh. One of the most famous mummies in the world is Hatshepsut. She ruled Egypt like a boss for nearly 20 years, building impressive structures and opening new trade routes. But when Howard Carter found her tomb in the Valley of the Kings, her coffin was empty. However, he did find 2 other coffins inside. Subscribe and explore the forgotten past with us. Like, share and support our journey to uncover the truth buried under the sand.